a certain disregard for the fact that you're not here for your entertainment, but you are there to do public service delivery. It's just too good. I mean, like each time I drive down the highway and I pass a toll plaza, I say, hey, I did this. Learn from the government, because in every nook and corner of the government, there is something for you to do and deliver. Don't dig your grave in the process of wanting to overachieve. When you are studying for this exam, block the social media totally. What we are looking for, I think, in this exam is more about having that well-rounded knowledge and approach.
I am your host Gaurav Garg, and we welcome all our viewers to our show Amazing Mentor. Today with us is Ms. Dakshita Das. She is Additional Member Finance at Ministry of Railways, Government of India. In 1986 batch Indian Railway Account Service Officer. She is an experienced civil servant with demonstrative history of working in the financial sector, public finance and infrastructure sector. Skilled in policy analysis, government strategic planning, budgeting, project management and strategy. She is the author of 2 books, including Myself Meena IAS, a story of Meena, a young, fun-loving girl from Bareilly who seeks to make her career in Indian civil services. It's a pleasure to welcome Ms. Dakshita Das to our show, Amazing Mentor. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
It's my pleasure, ma'am. So tell us about your childhood and hobbies you enjoyed as a child.
Well, actually, I grew up in Lucknow. My father was a doctor there, and we grew up there. And childhood was good fun, large family, extended family, and the summer vacations are all spent in Missouri. There was no aspiration except to enjoy life. That's it. I had lots of friends, lot of food, lot of family, lot of fun. That's it. Childhood was good. But one thing was there. I was distinctly unconventional right from the beginning. So I think that bit was very common in my childhood.
And what about hobbies, ma'am?
So reading was a great passion. Reading, and for me also somehow, I mean, I can't say I was playing games and things like that, but reading and that creative instinct was very sharp. And I think a lot of it was to do with my education, because at the time when I grew up in Lucknow, the Irish nuns were very dominant in the schooling network there, and they would make you do a lot of creative work. So perforce, while you were doing it, it also became a passion. There was also a garden in the house, so we all learned rudimentary gardening, which now I find is actually become the YouTube type of a thing. But we grew up with that. So creativity, reading, writing, and of course bashing each other up. We were 3 siblings, and we fought definitely a lot, and that's how we grew up. A lot of love, affection, fighting. No concrete hobbies except to enjoy life.
That's nice. So what about your schooling, ma'am? Where did you complete your schooling from?
I studied only in one school. My father was fairly dogmatic in that approach. He was extremely conservative. He says, look, I'm going to give you guys good education, but you, from start to finish, you stay in the same school. I'm not running around for admissions everywhere. So I got admitted into Loreto Convent, Lucknow. At that time, again, schooling options were slightly limited, but it was good fun. I did Loreto right from the beginning. And when I passed out in my class 12th, my father, he was a visionary. He is a visionary of sorts. He says, nobody stays with me after they turn 17. So all of us were thrown out of the house thrown out of the house, not literally, but told to find our lives and our paths. So after 17. So then I moved to Delhi for my college. But also tell you one thing, I had got a bit frustrated as far as Lucknow was concerned. Same school, sameness, same people.
So any childhood school memory you would like to share?
There were 2 things. One is that we had a very conservative set of girls with us in college, and one of them got married in class 10th, which was like a bit too much. Even in the late 1970s and early 80s, it was like, marriage so early. And I think the second childhood memory, which I always carry with me, is lots of these relatives who would be coming with gifts from overseas. And that time, England was very big, and UK was very big, and London was very big. And then you aspirationally think that, yeah, I want to get out and I want to do something big and bigger. So those type of memories stay with me. I don't have any dramatic memories of loss of a dog or tremendous fondness of a doll or something. I have very strong memories of just looking aspirationally at others. And in Missouri, when we were growing up together, 23 cousins, yes, 23, that sense of bonding and being together, that also remains with me forever because we carry those relationships till today. It's interesting, but today we still continue to be a very cohesive, close knit family.
So how was you as a child, introvert or extrovert child?
Oh, I was a brat. I was a total brat. And I think between the three of us, I think I gave the roughest time to my mother. My father was never home. And my mother also had started working then. I think at some stage I really gave her grief. I keep on making amends for that.
So what was your dream profession as a child?
Would you believe it? I was swinging between being an educationist, I used to admire hugely, or I wanted to, do things like having the health and the strength to climb mountains. One came from the fact that I respected education a lot, and the second came thanks to the fact that the house in Missouri was on top of a hill. And each time I had to go down to get groceries, I would curse my grandparents for building a house so high up. I think these were the only aspirations I had. But yes, on a very serious note, being an educationist was a very big aspiration. And even till today, I continue to envy some of my very close friends who are scholars of renown, how they, in those days when there was no computer and you did all your typewriting and you wrote your manuscripts and your PhDs, how they managed to do it. And yes, it was always a dream, now an unfulfilled dream, to go to an academic institute of repute overseas and study. That never happened, but that's okay. Other dreams happened.
What inspired you to choose civil services?
I think the fact that my father was very non-conventional, and at that stage, my father and my brother both had a different vision of what was expected from me. It was a very gender-neutral type of a setup at home. And I think there was no way that you were expected not to follow a profession. And these are very strong statements I'm making for the 1970s. So once that was happening, your choices were very limited. Either you did law, you went abroad, and you became a lawyer, or you decided to follow the academic profession. But somewhere inside me, I knew I'd make a very lousy teacher. And the other option was to take the civil services. Options were limited. I did that. I qualified. I was happy. I didn't have to struggle too much.
So how was your journey when you decided, okay, now I want to be a civil officer? So how was your journey and what all challenges did you face?
So I think principally the biggest challenge anyone faces even today is the mental challenge. The challenge is purely mental because you need the discipline to sit down, tie yourself to your chair and study. And at that time, the method of study was also a very big challenge because that time there was Rao's coaching at Haley Road and a couple of others. And whatever you learned was there. I mean, the rest of it was all your peer group. And this is a lonely journey. Peer group sustenance is not there. It's just you and your thoughts and the fear that you won't qualify. It's all a mental game. And that was the only challenge which I think I faced. But having faced that challenge, I realized it wasn't as much as I see my son having gone through when he was preparing for his exams. Because I think challenges are the same and they are all mental challenges. But yes, on today's date, the methods to take this exam are more clearly detailed. There's a lot of mentoring happening. There are a lot of people who can guide you, who can help you navigate. All those possibilities were not available then. So that's how the challenges were a little more acute then. And that fear that if I don't qualify, then I might have to take the UGC exam or something like that.
So any motivational person in your mind that motivated you to follow civil service examination?
I think it's always been a combination of my father and brother. Both were very motivational. My brother was a person who was always picking up challenges and walking in and out of jobs very easily, government jobs, non-government jobs, studying, reinventing. And I said, hey, that's the way I want to be. So I think if I look at it between my father and my brother, I think that they were the ones who were my guiding light. I think I always wanted to follow their path, and that helped me in good stead because that sense of latent ambition came from the two men in my life at that stage.
So, what was the first reaction of your parents when you told them, okay, now you have been selected as an officer?
Oh my God, it was ecstasy. I still remember. It was such ecstasy because I was the first child, the first, I mean, around me, my other 7 or 8 cousins had all been married. I was the one who had taken the plunge that I'm going to stall this and I'm going to qualify. I was 25, 24, part 25, and it was such a party time. There were people and there were non-stop crowds of people coming with in Lucknow that motichur ka laddu is so important and people would be just celebrating like anything. I think that was feeling was very exciting that the entire community felt that uh, I've achieved something, because I also felt that in a sense it also gave a kind of a feel to other kids around that they too can take this exam. It's not that tough because they'd seen my journey. I mean, I was not a person who needed to spend, who had the mental aptitude to tie myself down to studying too much. So once you are like that, then you become a kind of a role model that if you have that kind of mental strength to do it in a short span with the correct method, then yes, you can crack it. And I didn't want to take the exam again. I was extremely content with what I had got, and that's how life is.
So, where did you started your career journey from?
Well, I joined the railways and I had other options, but I didn't want to join the police, so I opted for this service. And at that stage, all the conservative things had kicked in, the facilities, the fact that it was a relatively more peaceful life, also deemed to be within good then, because that's when the real world kicks in. When people start guiding you, they say, "Arey, yahan jao, is service mein jao, isme promotion zyada hai." And those are things which youngsters have to really watch out for, because these are pitfalls. In a 30-year career span, you can never figure out which service is going to do better than another service because things change. The services which were not doing so well when I joined are now, much faster in terms of opportunities as well as what they offer. But in any case, at that stage, I joined the railways. Our training was at Baroda Staff College, which is a heritage place. Reality struck there because the changes which India is seeing now as cemented changes had already started then. People were from different backgrounds, different aspirations. A whole lot of them were taking the exam again. A whole lot of them were content with what they had got. And from Baroda, then I managed to get Delhi as my first headquarter to report to. And then I did a couple of small area postings. And finally, luckily for me, I landed up back in Lucknow, where my parents were still there for within a couple of years of my service. And that's what the beginning was.
So, how was your early days as an officer?
A lot of adjustment. I remember how I had to shed several cobwebs. I had to become independent in my mind. I was definitely not independent. I was I was non conventional, but I was not independent. And bureaucracy requires a certain structural framework in which you operate. Bureaucracy requires certain skills which were very much missing in me then, and prime amongst them is a certain sense of calm in handling things, a certain sense of judgment, a certain disregard for the fact that you're not here for your entertainment, but you are there to do public service delivery. So those were the things which was tough. And in the beginning, I had a tougher time because I remember a lot of complaints which my office people made about me, that how I would read in office, because reading continued to be a passion. Reading became such a passion that whichever office I've worked in since I've joined my career, I have enforced the fact that the libraries should be absolutely top class. So that was something which was a cause for complaint, because the staff said, हम जब भी इनके कमरे में जाते हैं ये किताब इनकी किताब के साथ बैठी रहती. But that's fine. I mean, they learned to adjust. I learned to adjust. But I had to do a lot of adjustment. And there was a stage, in fact, when my father was also very irritated by my constant narrative of woes. And he just said, why don't you go out and go away and do a job somewhere else? Leave. Bureaucracy is not meant for you. But that's okay. In the beginning, everybody has to adjust.
What all type of departments have you handled in your course of journey?
Initially, my first, I'll say 14 years was in the railways, hardcore railways. Then I was a vigilance officer for some time, about 4-5 years. And then I started feeling a little tired of the sameness of decision making. And that's when I applied for deputation and I came to the Ministry of Finance to the budget division. And that was a great eureka moment for me because I just fell in love with the way the government processes work to deliver such an, intrinsic part of Indian economy. And I did about 13 budgets there. After that, I came back to the railways for a bit and then went back again. I did the railway budgets also, including the last budget of the Indian Railways before the budget got merged with the union. Then I moved to the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. And very excitingly then, at that time, they were coming out with this fast tag. You know what you find in highways, the electronic toll collection. So that got assigned to me and there was a fabulous team, private sector consultants and me, and we managed to deliver the project in 2016. That was extremely exciting. Then I moved up and I moved into the Department of Financial Services as additional secretary, where I was there for over 2.5 years. And that was a different sector altogether. So it's been between infrastructure ministry, infrastructure financing, public finance, financial sector. It's been a journey in those silos.
So what all challenges you faced in the initial days as an officer?
Those were the early years where I had to change. But the one thing I'll tell you, each time you move to a new assignment, you got to do a lot of learning. And now that I'm looking at retirement and I clean up my papers, I find that meticulously the first few weeks go in building up knowledge base about the kind of work you are going to do. Interestingly, Government of India setup is very clearly demarcated and the policy part is very clearly detailed. There are laws, there are acts. So each time wherever I have gone, the learning part has been very significantly important in the initial weeks. But what is also was critical was that in me there is that instinctive sense of wanting to organize things. So a lot of the places where I have gone, I have had to build checklists. I have to build a lot of method, which you may call a standard operating procedure. And a lot of that comes from the training of the railways because railways is an extremely detailed organization. Nothing works here without a method. So that I carried with me. So I laid the foundation pretty much of the first Indian budget manual. And then wherever I went, even for the electronic toll collection, we built a certain manualization of the processes. So the system improvement part was a co-partner to the fact that I was learning the work and wherever I was finding the slight gap, I was trying to build the system reform. How it helps is that once you do that, then you end up having a more peaceful life thereafter. If you don't put in that little effort in the beginning, and every new place has got that little intensive effort you have to you put in that effort and your life is peaceful for the rest of your tenure.
So what's that one thing you love the most about your profession?
There's just so much to do. There's so much to do. I just find that each time I do this much, there is a little more to contribute. Public policy, delivery, there's some institution building I've done. It's just too good. I mean, like each time I drive down the highway and I pass a toll plaza, I say, hey, I did this, and I was a part of the team which did it. And it's a good feeling each time there is there is a budget speech being made by the honorable finance ministers, I remember what we all used to do. Each time I look at some of the institutions in the financial sector, all newsworthy institutions, I say, okay, that little bit I contributed. So government is too good. I mean, government offers you opportunities like no other. I have no quibbles. In fact, yes, I'll seriously feel that I could have done much more when I finally hang my boots.
Any heart touching moment or incidents you would like to share in your professional journey?
When old people you worked with and retired people, or like there'll be somebody who's retiring, particularly somebody who's worked with you at a clerical level, not maybe as an officer, they'll come to you and say, oh, we've named our daughter after you, or madam, can you speak with our daughter, we want her to be like you. So in that sense, it's happened to me 3 times. So I think, yeah, I was in a good space, and it's very touching because people have, you know, I'm not saying it's not an ego issue. It's the fact that you were able to build a chord with people, and some of these were chronic, difficult people to handle in the workspace. So that was most touching, because when you were going through that at that moment, that relationship with that particular subordinate, it was tough, seriously tough. But when he comes back to you after 10 years and says that I'm no longer in the system, but I wanted to tell you that I have named my daughter after you, and can you please, just spend 2 minutes with her, you think that yes, you've been able to deliver as an officer. The other thing which I still remember is that when we were in budget division, the budget division generally has a system where you have to be in a very cloistered environment for a few days. And to lighten the mood, I used to use my creative edge, and I used to write what was called budget poems, which used to be 5 line limericks on the various people who were participants, and a lot of leg pulling would happen in that. Like we have in Holi and all, we used to prepare dohas. I used to do it in English. And recently, I think about last month, somebody had retired and he had framed all those pieces of paper and he gifted them to me. And also gifted it to all the colleagues we had worked together. Little moments, but big moments.
Who is your mentor as an officer?
There were 2 people. One was a lady who I worked under when I was in the Ministry of Finance. She's retired now, and was an IS officer from the UP cadre. And I have always admired her, and she mentored me big time. She didn't see the angularities in me. She saw the skill set. And I'll be eternally grateful to her because, mind you, I was a history student who was struggling to be in the field of public finance. And she never held that against me. It's very easy to say that you're a bureaucrat and you can do anything, but believe you me, you can't do everything. Not when you have to do number crunching. I didn't even know how to do Excel, which was the basis on which you had to do a lot of number crunching. So Madam had a lot of faith in me, and that's the person whom I'll continue to respect and revere until we both part ways.
So when did you first realize that you wanted to be a writer?
I told you right from the beginning that creative instinct was very sharp in me, and but I didn't know how to write. See, again, the thing is that whether it was taking this exam or whether it's writing a book, if you don't know the method, you can keep on struggling and you cannot come out with a product. Again, I was lucky. Every time in life, there is always a eureka moment. There is a friend of my husband's who's quite a renowned writer. And he would be in our house for some time researching on a book he was writing. And then he just told me, he says, look, I've seen some of the stuff you've written. Why don't you just convert that into a book? By then I'd started writing for newspapers, and I'd written for Economic and Political Weekly. And most of them were very dry, pedantic articles with your sense of humor. And that's how I started keeping a diary, and whoever would enter my room would become a chapter in the book, because there's so many interesting things which keep on happening in the office. Every day the office offers you another character for your book. And thereafter I liked writing about young people and for young people, because the response to myself, Meena, was good. It was good and I was happy. And then I wrote another book for youngsters, which is called Alpha Girl, Beta Boys. And again, very interesting because by then, at our age, you find a whole lot of colleagues coming in saying, why don't you talk to our children, our daughter, our son? Each child became a character in the book. So that's how the two big books came together. But I'll attribute the start of the journey to this friend of my husband's who actually told me, he says, you please write.
So, what inspired you to write Myself Meena IRAS?
I was posted back in the railways, and there was this young girl, a new probationer, who came to see me. And after posting, she was 2, 3 months later. I thought, let me check out how she's doing. And she told me, she said that, look, she had a whole lot of degrees. She'd done MBBS and she'd done this and she'd done that. And she was like 28 years old. And she was like saying, did I struggle this entire time for this exam, the real reality and what do I gain from it? The dilemma is actually acute because these are not many more chances to take the exam. A lot of kids around you are older than you. You are entering the service at a much later age than we were. And by then you've already lost your youth in struggling for this exam. And that's when I thought that why don't I build a character? This girl was a trigger, but my character was a younger girl, also immature. And she was, of course, not driven by any other aspiration except for whatever her aspiration was. But this officer whom I met, she was a trigger. And incidentally, I met her again last month. And I reminded her, I said, that time you were very unhappy. She's saying, I was very confused then, ma'am. And this transition between being a student, studying for this exam, repeatedly taking it, not qualifying, and then finding that the reality is just so different. Just so different. She says that transition was very tough for me. So, but now I'm very sorted and I'm an extremely happy person. So that's how the book came together.
Any decision or action you regret in your career?
I do regret. I have one very major regret, and that is that I never took study leave and never built up a degree. One of the handicaps I've faced throughout is that people ask me, what are your degrees? My degrees are just a BA honors in history and a post-graduation in history. And I think that's not enough. And education opens your mind to different frontiers, and that's one thing which is so important and so critical. And it's not difficult to study a little bit more. It's just that you have to discard that laziness. I was never able to discard it. So that's one regret which will stay with me forever.
So why is meeting an officer so difficult for general public?
I don't think that's correct, Gaurav, because I meet everyone. And I think that in recent times more so, with the public grievance monitoring mechanism becoming tougher, we are finding that access to public, we ourselves are giving more increased access to the public. It's a different thing that everything which the people who meet us may not be doable. But by and large, I'm finding that over the last 4-5 years, I've seen this change coming in where we are more responsive to meeting people. So if this was a problem in the earlier years, this perception now needs to be changed because now, yes, officers are opening up. It's not a Raja or Praja type of a thing. It's more like a partnership now.
So what advice would you like to give to young officers?
So one is to be extremely sorted in your life and don't expect too much from the government, but learn from the government because in every nook and corner of the government, there is something for you to do and deliver. And second is to always have your mental milestone for delivery. Yes, I want to do this and take it from beginning to end. And the third thing which is there, which is actually a reality that even you're in a profession, you want to be the best. In bureaucracy, you can keep on aspiring. And a lot of your perspiration is going into realization of an aspiration. But bureaucracy is very self-limiting in terms of what it can give to you. So, don't dig your grave in the process of wanting to overachieve. You want to overachieve, then there's a lot of many avenues which are available outside. Have a hobby, That hobby will hold you in good stead. It will also keep you mentally sorted. And last bit of advice which I'm giving to youngsters nowadays is that please manage your finances. Manage your finances well. Learn the basics of stock market or mutual funds or whatever you want to do, or land management, whatever you want to do. I mean, there are multiple options, because the fixed income and the fixed pension and the social security regimes are now very distinctly linked to the kind of investments you make. So these are the 4 5 bits of advice I'd like to give through you, which I also give to others when I meet them.
So, what are the do's and don'ts you suggest while preparing for civil service?
Do is mental discipline, as I've said earlier, repeatedly. And this is not something which is said casually. It requires mental discipline to do that, and that disciplining which you acquire holds you in good stead later on for the extremely long hours sometime, extremely tedious hours sometime, and extremely demanding hours at times. So that mental discipline is very important. Don't be lazy. That's the point. And next is the fact that when you are studying for this exam, block the social media totally. Social media is a no-brainer. It is purely an intrusion. Because when we were growing up, the mommy used to say this, the thai used to say this, the chachi used to say this. That's social media for you. You have multiple opinions and none of them really have relevance to you, because you only know what's best for you. And that comes only when you have your internal communication with your personality. And once you learn that at the time when you're taking this exam, let me tell you, it's going to hold you in good stead throughout. And this is not a pravachan word. This is just a mantra. Many times it happens, you say, oh my God, I've got to go another day to work. It can happen to anyone. It can happen to you also. But if you have that mental discipline that you say, yeah, I mean, it's like, this is how I navigate the day. It's good. And that's what the preparation process is. And also understand one thing, that the civil services is also like any other situation. A lot of it is a game of chance. If you don't qualify, you're not a lesser human being. I mean, in fact, you might just be a better person because you get to discover yourself in different avenues. It's not a test of a great achievement. It's not like you've climbed the Mount Everest and you're the Edmund Hillary of your life that have stuck a flag and say, hey, I've done this. Civil services is not a Mount Everest of that kind. It's just an exam. So keep a lot of options on the plate.
So how and where to start preparing for civil services?
I think you need to be alert about the preparation from very early on. And I think early years in college are very important. Learn to read the papers, learn to follow the news, learn to follow government policy. Government is doing a lot of policy work now. And these are very dynamic policy changes. Also, when I am speaking with young groups who are preparing, and these are open sessions, when I speak with them, I tell them that don't be a critique, because you're taking an exam to enter the government. What you are doing is that you are looking at that 3-minute WhatsApp forward and you believe that that is the truth or the reality on any situation. So whatever is happening, get into the aspect of self-analysis. Don't be a critical analyst, be a middle of the path analyst, because this is what that exam is about. Nobody is looking for you to have some kind of an intellectual wizardry or having some PhD on every topic which is available. Basic knowledge is important, and basic non-evaluative knowledge is important. Yes, it's important to know, for instance, what you can do for malnourished children, but you don't need to have a critique of the government policy, that why the policy has gone wrong, because everything has got a good and a bad attached to it. What we are looking for, I think, in this exam is more about having that well-rounded knowledge and approach. And a lot of the mistake the kids which are committing is that they are allowing these little news forwards which are coming on, these bite little bit of information which is coming on WhatsApp as the basic preparation groundwork. You have to unlearn all of that. Your NCRT books, your Government of India publications, and of course the kind of coaching material which the various institutes give. Those are very well researched. Those are based out of practice. Those are the ones which hold you in good stead.
So many kids just appear for civil service examination and do not have any clarity of path and the purpose. What advice would you like to give them?
In the north, the whole thing is everybody wants to take the IS exam, and when you watch a lot of the TV serials and all, the like the ads and all which are coming, they're really glorifying things a lot. Look, it's a profession. Yes, it's a profession which gives you huge opportunities. But again, if I look at my peer group of those days when I was in college, or my peer group of my husband, he was from a different stream, a technical stream. He did law. His contemporaries have done much better, much better. And some of them who are in law, for instance, they're also motivated. They are driven people. Somewhere down the line, we have to accept the fact that yes, bureaucracy is not the only profession which is available to us. Your parents may want to drive you. The kind of serials you see, like there is this ad coming these days about some girl heading out for her office and her husband saying that I'm going to make the food or a meal. I watched it for 2 seconds. It kind of gives a negative role enforcement. The thing is, it's just an exam. What you are doing is that you're hyping the character to make it appear that once they will qualify, then it will be like all paradise will break loose in the family. It's not so. Typically, what is happening is that there is one kid who's studying, and the entire family's, entire ecosystem is geared around towards the fact that once this kid qualifies, this paradise is going to open, the floodgates of paradise. It's not so. It's not so. It's just a job. You can't do this, have your plan B. And kids are very qualified these days, extremely qualified. And I would suggest that there should always be a plan B. You can't do plan A, do a plan B.
So now we will start our rapid round.
Oh.
Your favorite actor and actress?
I really don't have a favorite actor, but I have a favorite actress, and that's Meryl Streep. I'm amazed by that lady.
Your favorite color?
Light blue.
Your favorite destination?
It's always Corbett National Park.
Your favorite car?
Not for me. A car is just 4 wheels for me.
Things in your wish list?
Yeah, my wish list is acquire the degree which I had never acquired. It's a dream to go to Boston and sit there and perhaps finally pick up that degree, which I hope to do in the near future.
Your dream house?
Dream house is going to be lots of sun, lots of light, lots of plants, and a study for myself with my books.
Second choice of career?
Educationist. I think you make and mar lives there.
One thing that you would like to change if you are provided superpower?
I'd love to see happier people with that sense of humor.
At last, one line that defines you?
Always unorthodox, perpetually unorthodox.
Thank you very much for your time, ma'am. And it was great talking to you and listening to the journey of your life and the advices that you have shared on our show. Thank you very much for your time, ma'am.
Thanks, Gaurav. Thanks.
Thank you for watching our show, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button to get regular updates. Thank you very much.